Hello and welcome with Wellner Anderson. Today we're going to be talking about the potential of a rail strike that we're hearing about in the news. I must be honest with you, I'm more partial toward the labor piece of it and what they're being deprived of. So what I'm going to do in this report is give you some background on the labor history and how it got so bad. Please subscribe and give me a like and a thumbs up as we get going through this. First of all, the railroads since time has made trillions of dollars on events, which I'm going to talk about, that they did not reinvest in infrastructure, nor did they put that into the labor of their people. They've been deprived for many years, and we're going to get through that. So why is the railroad so important? 1/3 of U.S. shipments go via rail. And the rail is one of the 5 elements that make up delivering a lot of our fuel, chemicals, and things of that nature. Right now, when you talk about fuel and you look at Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that is absolutely empty. So we're sort of in a weird situation as we move on through this. There's a diesel shortage, and it's estimated if there's a railroad strike, that would be about $2 billion a day loss. Remember, the supply trains, the railroads run on diesel fuel, and we're short there. Let me talk a little bit now about the railroad history, just to give back some background. The first railroad appeared in about 1815 in the United States. The initial labor, when we talk about labor, we're going to be talking about the people who actually built the infrastructure. I'm not talking about Pullman labor that may be found on the trains themselves. The original laborers were from Ireland, they were Chinese, there was some Afro-American slave labor. It was always a very dangerous job. And the most dangerous of all jobs was called the brakeman. They measured brakemen by how many fingers they lost. You actually would have to pull a peg to brake the train. And the deaths and the carnage was incredible. Even when air brakes were developed by George Westinghouse, the railroads did not invest in that. It was deemed to be too expensive. In 1872, around that time, the railroads were rated as the most dangerous job in the world. There were collisions, derailments, fires, explosions, weather, failed infrastructures. The death totals in 1889 were about 8.5 thousand people. In 1895, 6.4 thousand people. In 1901, 7,300 people died on the railroad. Now, I don't know what kind of numbers their employees were, but considering that the railroad industry is probably 150,000 employees today, these numbers must have been staggering. They had something called an obnoxious contract. Now, what this was that in the past, if someone got injured on the railroad, there'd be no death penalty to the family. There were no sick days. They were prohibited for striking. They worked an 18-hour workday until about 1870. Unions were banned. If you spoke out of line, you were blacklisted. And at one point during the robber baron era, the railroads were the largest employers and most profitable employers in the world. The robber barons were the Vanderbilts, the J. Hills, the J. Goulds, and etc. This period of time in America was probably the most unequal time in history. in the entire country. Pure greed. The government was so anxious to build a railroad to go from east to west coast that they awarded the railroads a 20-mile plot from wherever the train was going. Now, what the railroad did with that is they built infrastructure, towns, and they were able to take that money and put it back in their coffers. Oil, gold that was found went into their pockets. Another thing is interesting, how bad things were for these people back then, is that you were compelled to buy, for most railroads, in a company store. Your kids went to a company school. You lived in a company house. And I understood at some point in time, the railroads would delay the bringing of money to the town so they could force the people to use script, their own currency. Now, there's been a number of railroad issues, 1929, 1934, where mediation and arbitration became part of solving the issue. At one time, Union Pacific was rated as the worst company in the world. Let's now jump ahead and look at what is being proposed and what's on the table right now. Now, I want to tell you, this is before the strike, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say I believe there's going to be a strike. Okay. The tentative agreement between the railroads and the unions offered 24% over 5 years. An additional personal day, and the end to what a punitive process they had, which if you called in sick, there was a point system that was used. So the biggest issue the union has with the railroads is sick time. You have to respond within a certain period of time when you're called. So you're like on call for most of the time. If you took off for Friday or Monday, you would get additional points taken away from you. It's an extremely tough job. To me, it's a job that they expect the union to deliver that is actually a century behind. So, I hope that's giving you enough on the background on how we got here and why I empathize with the union. I'd like to thank you for your time. Thumbs up, like, and have a great day.